And hello, if you joined us just now, we're going to get started in about a few minutes and just let people arrive. So we'll wait for them. In the meantime, if you want to start having a look at some of the world scrambling activity we've got on there, we've got 5 words for you to unscramble, and which can keep you just occupied while we're waiting. There's 3 people in now. This is good. So Emma's just posted a message in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from today. We've got people coming from all over, well, not coming, but watching from all over the Northwest. We've got Staffordshire, Derbyshire, and obviously here in Cheshire. So
Australia. Yeah.
Well, that one's a bit unusual, that.
Welcome.
Lots of coast in Australia. Cambridgeshire, wow, we've got people from all over the place.
Yeah.
London, got Staffordshire again, Leicestershire. Gosh, we've got lots of different people. Birmingham. Well, who's from Cheshire? We must have a few more people from Cheshire. Poland, wow. Southend, Liverpool. Liverpool, you're close to Cheshire. So look. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. So if you want to have a go trying to unscramble some of those words, I'll pop the answers up in a little bit when we get started. All to do with the coast and marine theme. So we're a bit challenging and tricky. We believe. It's up to 40 people now. This is good. Keep on coming. And just to let you know, we are recording this today, so if you want to have a look at it again or you want to see some of the videos, we'll be sending that in a link through the email after the event. And any of the videos today that we are showing are going to be on YouTube, so if you want to have a look at some of the activities that we showed you on there, or you need to find some links, we'll also have those on hand for you as well.
We've got people here from all over the country, James.
I know, doing really well. It's fantastic to see so many people all engaged. Oh, someone's doing well.
Oh, got some answers already.
We'll have to get started soon then. I'm rubbish at those. I'm not good at unscrambling words.
Which one do you think is the most difficult?
I don't know. What would you say?
I think the second from the bottom is quite tricky. Me too.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah, I'd agree. That probably is the trickiest one. Right, well, I think we've got a few more people just joined us now, so I think we may as well get started. So welcome to everyone joining us today. We've got people, as I said, coming from all over the country. So wherever you are, it's lovely to have you here. So I'm James and I'm from Cheshire Wildlife Trust, and joining me today we've got Emily.
Hi everyone. Hi. I'm Dr. Emily Baxter and I'm the Senior Marine Conservation Officer for the Northwest Wildlife Trust. So I'm on here today as one of the marine experts.
And we've also got Emma as well, who's going to be in the background looking into all your questions that you can send over. So what you can do is if you've got a question throughout, we're going to address those all at the end. So just put it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and Emma will be having a look at those. And similarly, she's going to be having a look on the chat just to see what's going on. And so everyone feel free to say hi to Emma and submit any questions you have. As I did say before, we are recording this, so we'll go up online and you'll have a link to it in the end. All the videos are on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to find them. So again, welcome, and wherever you are today, I can tell you as a fact that you're not more than 80 miles away from the coast if you're in the UK. Those of you in Australia and Poland, it might be a little bit different. But if you're in the UK today and joining us, yep, you're actually not too far from the coast at all. So here are the answers. I think someone's already got ahead of me there. So if I click on the screen, you'll appear. Well, there's a dolphin for you. Yes, so we've got dolphin, we've got coast, wave, sea urchin and rock pool. So they were our answers. And there will be some quiz questions throughout this. So what you might want to do is grab a pen and paper and see if you can maybe challenge your friends and family, or you can just have a discussion about it. It's up to you. So happy National Marine Week. So Marine Week is going on for actually 2 weeks. It's really a 2-week thing. And Marine Week's all about trying to celebrate our seas, our coast, and that's really what we've got as a theme this year. It's our coast that we're looking at. So marine is a word, as we say, to describe anything to do with the sea, and that's what Emily and me are going to be talking to you today about. So we thought we'd get started with a bit of marine trivia. So here we go. A couple of questions. How much of the world is covered by oceans? So what do you reckon, Emily? Should we give them a clue?
Yeah, let's give them a clue. So it's more than 50%.
Talking quite a lot of the world here is covered by our oceans. So our second question, we'll have to move me in the way. How much of the world's water is in the oceans? So go on, Emily, let's give them another clue.
So that will include all of the water apart from everything that's in the rivers and the lakes. So I'd say it's got to be more than 75% perhaps.
So we're talking an awful lot is in the oceans, okay? And then our last trivia question as well, which country has the longest coastline in the world? So should we give them one more hint, Emily?
It's quite tricky. I don't think it's the UK because we're actually quite a small island. A country with a big intricate coastline. I don't know, what's your guess?
I think it's not in Europe.
Not in Europe.
Not in Europe, that'd be my clue. So let's have a look. Right, answers. So how much of the world is covered by oceans? Oh, there's our dolphin again. Keeps on popping up every now and then. It's 70%, so that's a huge amount of our world, isn't it, that's covered in oceans. So really important for sort of wildlife, these places, because there's just so much of it there. How much of the world water is in the oceans? It's 97%. So there's only 3% that's not in our oceans or in our lakes and our rivers. That's only a very small amount. And that sort of shows how important these places are, because it accounts for a massive amount of habitat. And what country is the longest?
99% of the whole living space on the planet is in the oceans. So it's, yeah, really important.
It's really good for wildlife, these places. And go on, Emily, what country has the longest coastline in the world?
Canada.
Yeah, there we go. So Canada's got the longest coastline in the world. And where's the UK, Emily, in terms of that ranking?
It is 12th, which might be surprising to some.
So we are one of the biggest in the world, but we're obviously only a little island, so we're not the biggest in a way. So well done if you got those right. You can score maybe some points there if you want. So today we're going to talk a little bit about sort of the coastline we have around the northwest, and in particular one little site in Cheshire that we have. So it's actually on the Wirral. So do you want to just explain a little bit about this, Emily?
Yeah, so this is showing the northwest coastline here. The pinpoint is just south of Liverpool, so that might give you a bit of a reference point if you're not too familiar with the Wirral itself. If you click to the next slide, James. And the Wirral is quite an unusual area because it is surrounded on both sides by estuaries. So these are places where the river meets the sea. So we've got the Dee estuary to the south, and just on the other side of that estuary is Wales, and the Mersey estuary to the north, and on the other side of that estuary is Liverpool.
So what we're going to do is we're going to be showing you a few videos around this place today. And we're just going to give you a bit of an insight into what sort of our nature reserve there, Red Rocks, is like. So if you've been to Red Rocks, you might know this already, but you might not. But we've got some red rocks, funnily enough, at Red Rocks. So my question for you is, why are the red rocks at Red Rocks red? So should we give them a hint, Emily?
Yeah, go on then. So there's a special kind of mineral in the rocks that makes them red.
Something in the rocks is turning them red, so you might want to just have a quick chat with your family, your friends, just to see what you think it might be. And how old are they? So how old are the red rocks at Red Rocks? Should we give them another hint?
I think they must be pretty old. I'd say more than 1,000 years old.
So we've got I'll give you another clue. There's some pretty big creatures roaming around the earth at that time. Okay, so why the Red Rocks are Red Rocks red? They are red because there's iron in the rocks. So if you think of like nails or some bits of metal, they get a bit rusty over time when they've got water sort of in contact with them. So the red rocks have these rusty colour because of the iron inside it. So that's just an interesting fact for you. And how old are they? Now this is quite a shocking one. They are 200 to 250 million years old. So that's from the Triassic period when dinosaurs were around. So they are very, very old. Now, to get you in the theme for National Marine Week, I thought I'd just show you a little bit of a video so you can get in the mood and we get a feel for what it's all about. So let me make sure we're sharing our computer screen with sound. Here we go. It's often easy to forget that there's a world of wildlife waiting underneath the ocean. Although many of us can't really explore this underwater world, we can still interact it by going and exploring our coast. So we've come down to Red Rocks Nature Reserve on the Wirral. This is an area of coastline 25 miles long. That's the size of 400 football pitches. Lots of different habitats along the Wirral. There's the beach itself, there's sand dunes, there's salt marshes, we've got reed beds, and they're all home to some rare and interesting types of wildlife. Wildlife trusts are calling on you to become a nature detective. Go to our website and download the iNaturalist app and see what wildlife you can find on your coastal walk. Will you become a nature detective this National Marine Week? There's one really simple thing you can do at the beach is just clean up after yourselves, or if you see any litter, just pick it up and put it in the bin. So we'll have more on those details later. So I'll just put you back over to my screen. There we go. Which one? Get this one. There we go. So Emily, I thought I might just ask you, what's your favourite marine or coastal animal?
Oh, that's quite a difficult one because I love so many of them. I think my favourite would have to be jellyfish, and that's because I spent a long time studying them. I think they're absolutely beautiful and really interesting animals.
So they don't have a brain, do they?
They don't have a brain, no. They've got a kind of network of nerves which help them kind of move around and things, but you often find them washed up on the coast, so keep your eye out for them.
Yeah, but maybe not touch them.
Yeah, don't touch them. There's some that give it a nasty sting.
So as I said today, we're going to have a little bit looking at Red Rocks, our reserve at Cheshire Wildlife Trust on the Wirral. So we've got a couple of interesting species really at this nature reserve, and there's two in particular that I thought I'd give a mention to. So the first probably isn't as exciting as the next one, but it's a type of grass, and it's the only place in the whole of England that this type of grass grows, and it's called the southern horsetail, or informally the Wirral horsetail, and it's a species that you can't find anywhere but Wirral. And then the other one that is perhaps a bit more interesting to talk about is the natterjack toads. So I've got a picture for one for you there. Now these are really sort of important creatures because they're protected in the UK, and at Wirral, basically what happened was they nearly went locally extinct a couple of decades ago, and it's sort of through the work that we've done and our volunteers at Cheshire Wildlife Trust and our Wirral Wildlife Group, it's their work that's made these natterjack toads come back. And originally, like their little habitats, their little homes, there wasn't very many of them, and then we've created some more pools. And if you ever go down to Red Rocks and pay a visit, you'll see their little pools where they're breeding today, and they're making a little bit of a comeback. So it's a nice little success story that's going on there. And hopefully they will continue to recover as time goes on. So what other interesting creatures might you find around the Irish Sea, Emily?
The Irish Sea is home to a real wealth of wildlife. We have amazing animals and plants, from the tiniest little plankton, so microscopic plants and animals, to the world's second largest fish, the basking shark. Would you believe it's as long as a double-decker bus and just as heavy as well? So there are actually about 30 species of shark found in the Irish Sea, around about 12 whales and dolphins that are regularly found in the area that use kind of hotspots to feed on fish and things like that, and everything in between, from crabs to anemones, jellyfish that I've mentioned, and even things like the leatherback turtle. Did you know we have turtles in the Irish Sea? And not only turtles, but the world's largest turtle. They're around 2 meters long, so that's the same length as a tall man.
Massive, that, isn't it? So we've got loads of marine life out there that you can learn about and explore. And as I said, if you've got any questions to ask Emily, you can send them in the Q&A box. And what we'll do is ask them to, well, we'll put them to Emily at the end of the session, and Emma's going to be taking a look at those in the meantime. So just say hi to Emma, keep her, just be friendly to her. Right, so another little challenge for you. We've got some coastal habitat pictures here, and we've got 6 different coastal habitats there. So what you can have a go at now is having a guess what they are. So 1 and 2 are probably a bit easier than the others. 5 and 6 are quite tricky though, so you might need to have been paying attention in one of those videos, the video I showed you earlier. I did give you a bit of a hint there. So while people are having a bit of a guess at that, Emily, what other coastal habitats do we have around the coast that aren't on there?
So we also have things like rocky shore. Now there's not actually much rocky shore on the coast of the northwest because we've got lots of sandy beaches and mud flats, a few hints there. But there are a few rocky areas, particularly around areas like Hilbert Island in the Dee estuary that I mentioned, and also further up the coast, right up into Cumbria, there's a few really nice areas of rocky shore. So that's where you'll get your kind of typical rock pools, where you can go and find crabs and anemones, shrimps, and lots of different kind of snails and other creatures that like living in them.
Fantastic. So hopefully you've had a bit of a time to write down a couple of answers or talk them through. So let's have a look at what we've got here. So here we go. So number 1, we've got the sea itself and the seabed. So that's a great habitat, isn't it, for wildlife, Emily?
It is, and the picture we've got here, we've got a seal swimming over a kelp bed. So kelp is like a really long seaweed. It can be a couple of meters long, and they attach themselves to the rocks, not using roots, but a holdfast, so this kind of special structure that they stick themselves to the rocks with. And this creates a forest in the ocean that kind of waves about as the tide comes in and out. And the fish like to hide in between the fronds of the seaweed and all the other creatures, so that they don't get caught by things like the hungry seal here.
Yeah, so I think he's looking very hungry for some fish there. So number 2, we've got the beach, haven't we? So that's probably the easiest one we can go and explore.
There is, and there's lots of different things to find on the beach. You can just have a look if you're out on the beach next time. It's not just there for having picnics, but have a look and see what you can find washed up. So whether that's shells or mermaids' purses, so egg cases from sharks and rays. And one of my favourite things to look for on the beach is actually something called a sea potato. I don't know if you've ever heard of a sea potato or can take a guess at what it is. It's actually a type of sea urchin, and they live buried into kind of sandy and muddy sediments just a bit further out to sea. And sometimes you find their shells, their empty shells, or tests as they're called, washed up on the beach. They're about this big and hollow. They might be white in colour. They may have some spines left on them, or they may just be a kind of white shell. But they're really interesting creatures to look out for.
You definitely wouldn't want to eat one of those potatoes.
No.
And so number 3 then, we've got cliffs. So what can you tell us about cliffs then, Emily?
Well, we've already talked about how interesting the colour of red rocks are, but you might think not all cliffs and rocks are red. What about the White Cliffs of Dover? Well, they're actually made from sea creatures themselves. So these were formed millions of years ago from tiny little plants called coccolithophores. So they're a little type of plankton with a skeleton made out of calcium. And as they died and broke down, they formed the White Cliffs of Dover.
So they're also really good for birds, I'm guessing, aren't they? Because they can lay their eggs in the cliffs and not be disturbed by predators.
Lots of nesting birds on the cliffs as well.
And then 4, we've got the sand dunes.
Yeah, the sand dunes are really interesting. We've got quite a lot of sand dunes up and down the coast of the northwest, and there's a real diversity of wildlife there, from things like really colourful plants like dune pansies or orchids to even lizards. We get quite a lot of lizards in certain places.
And then 5, now these were the tricky ones, 5 and 6. So 5 is the mud flats. So we've got a few birds there. So what are they like?
So we have a lot of mudflats across the coast of the northwest because we've got lots of rivers and estuaries coming out into the sea, and these are really rich places for our wildlife to live. So would you believe that just 1 cubic metre of mud, which is packed full of shellfish and worms, has the equivalent number of calories to 16 Mars bars? And that's why we get flocks of hundreds of thousands of wading birds and ducks coming to areas like the Mersey estuary every year to feed and breed.
I think I'd rather have a Mars bar than a load of mud, to be honest. But then again, I'm not a bird. So then 6 is the salt marsh. So we've got a bit of an interesting one there with the deer on.
Yeah, so that's another really interesting habitat, also found around estuaries. It's quite an intricate kind of patches of grass and things like that sticking up above the mud, that forms quite a nice complex home for creatures to live in. And it's really special groups of plants that live there that are quite tolerant to these kind of salty conditions, but also fresh water coming in as well.
Do you think the deer got a bit lost there?
Sorry, James, I missed that.
Do you think the deer got a bit lost?
Yeah, I think he might have got a bit lost.
Hopefully he'll find his way home then. Okay, so I hope you got those 6 there, and don't worry if you didn't, hope you know them now, and you might be able to spot them when you next go to the coast. So, what activities can we do at the coast? Now, I've got another video to show you here. So I asked 2 of my friends at Cheshire Wildlife Trust, Jan and Kelly, to go down to the coast and have a little go at doing some mud dipping and some beach exploring. Now, just for a warning to you, the video is very, very windy, so it might be difficult to hear the sound at times, so do bear with it. It does get better at times, and we might talk over it a little bit so we can tell you what's going on. So I'll show you that now. Share the screen to you. Here we go. And as I said, these videos are all on YouTube, so you'll be able to find them afterwards if you want to look up anything.
If you're at the beach with your family, what are some of the activities that you can do to find wildlife?
Right, well, often people like to go rock crawling at the beach, but the one that we're at here in Red Rocks, despite the fact it's called Red Rocks,
there's not a lot of rock pools around.
So what we try to do instead when we bring children here, bring your children
is what you'll need. You need a few things there. So you want to dig a hole, sand, because you need to get deep down to find all those little creatures. Really fast. You want to scoop up a little bit of sand in the sieve. Spread it around so all the sand comes out of it and you leave the creatures in. And you want some clean water to empty the sieve into so you can actually see those creatures.
Okay, so what do we have here?
Well, here we have some ragworm and some tiny little creatures which you can hardly see really, but they're a bit like water mites, but they're sea ones. There's some other worms that are wriggling about. Can't see them now. Plus there's evidence of the shellfish that live in the sand. Now the estuary is very, very good for wading birds, especially in the winter. And when we see the wading birds out on the sands with their long legs and their long beaks, they're probing down into the sand looking for these shellfish, which are a real staple food for them. And this is why the estuary is so important. Although you can't see the wildlife on the estuary, a lot of it's living beneath the sand. So another way of discovering what wildlife there is on the beach, out on the estuary and out to sea also, is to have a really good look along the strand line, which is where we are now.
So can you just explain to me what is the strand line?
So the strand line is the point where the tide comes in. It's the highest point it gets to before it stops and goes back
When
out.
the tide comes in and it goes back out again, leaving all the stuff
When the
behind.
tides go a bit further and some go back. You can, not usually. You'll see these a lot on the beach and they blow away really easily. You see them blowing about. These are egg cases of whelks. There's little holes in each individual round piece where basically the baby snail, they're a sea snail, has come out and left this very lightweight stuff behind. See how it blows away. Another thing and again, this is an egg case. There are many different types of shark, dogfish, catfish, and they all have these things that a lot of people call mermaid's purses. And what they are is eggs, little fish inside, and this is the actual egg, all joined together by these long, thin black pieces. And again, you'll find a hole where the baby fish has come out, and then they break up, float about in the sea, and get washed up on shore. So another thing we've got here, this is the shell of a razorfish. So there's a shellfish that lives inside the long, thin, razor-like shell. It anchors itself into the bottom of the sea and it feeds from little kind of tentacles that it sticks up at the top. But like all shellfish, they can grow and they need to shed their skin because this is an exoskeleton, a skeleton that's on the outside of the creature, so it will leave its shell behind. It may also have been eaten by some predator. It's difficult to know in this instance really which had occurred. We have these very fragile, they're called a seed potato, and if you look carefully they've still got a little bit of hairiness on them. When they're a live creature they're quite hairy, but again they have an exoskeleton, and when they get bigger they come out the bottom. There's often, that one's full of sand, there's often a hole where the little creatures come out and then it's got a new skin that's hardened over the top of it.
So that's really interesting, and it's quite easy to go and explore the strand line.
So on our way back with our trolley, as we were going back to the car, we passed an amazing bit of strand line, which is the one behind us here, and we found this cuttlefish bone. This is the bone that lives inside the front of a cuttlefish's face, really. Beak, it's called. Cuttlefish's beak.
There we go. So that might give you a bit of an idea as to what sort of things you might find when you go exploring the coast. So there's Emily's seed potato as well. So remember, if you've got any questions, keep putting them in the Q&A box, and they'll go through to Emma, and then we'll get to that later on in the session. So I thought we can't really talk about Marine Week without talking about some of the problems our oceans are facing. So Emily, could you tell us a little bit more about this first photo?
Yeah, so the first photo that we've got here towards the left-hand side is a fishing net, and this is because a lot of our seas are actually overfished, and that means that we have caught too many fish to eat, and also damaged the habitats, the vulnerable seabed where all of these sensitive little creatures live because of our fishing activities. So one of the important things that you can do is to look out for sustainably sourced seafood when you go shopping, but also you could join our call to ask for highly protected marine areas. So we're asking the government to save particular areas of the sea from damage such as this, and we've got a petition online at the moment, so if you're over 18 you can get involved in that. And I believe James is going to send the links with all of that information after this webinar.
Yeah, so if you want to support our efforts, so the Wildlife Trust are trying to get these areas in the sea so we can protect them and protect all the marine life there, and you're over 18, what you can do is sign our petition there, and that will go to the government, and hopefully we'll get some lasting change for our seas. Now, onto that second picture there. That's not looking great, is it, Emily? I think it's a river.
No. So this is signifying pollution. So basically a kind of message that wherever you are in the world, in the UK, you're not that far from the ocean. And anything that you put down the toilet and the drains often ends up in our rivers and then ultimately down into the sea. So we recommend that you only flush the 3 Ps, which is pee, poo and paper, and try not to put any nasty chemicals down the drain, and think about how where you live is connected to the sea. There are also problems from things like farming and runoff from the land there, which hopefully we can help to target over time.
We can just try and cut out those harmful chemicals, can't we, around the house and in our gardens perhaps. And then the last one, this is perhaps an issue that everyone's become more familiar with over the last sort of few years. So can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, so this might be a problem that most people are familiar with. So marine litter or plastic pollution. So this is what we often come across on the beach, which is actually just the tip of the iceberg. There's far more out there in the seas that we don't see. And this could have come from your home, so down the rivers as we talked about. It could have come from people leaving things on the beach, so perhaps having a picnic and leaving all the rubbish behind, or it could have come out from sea itself. So there's a problem with fishing nets that get lost and then end up either in the sea or on the beaches. So we've got a few tips of things that you can do to try and help with this problem. So you can first of all stop sucking, so say no to things, single-use things like straws, because they never really fully break down and can end up being eaten by animals. Don't let go of balloons, because although it seems like you're letting this balloon off into the sky, it has to come down somewhere, and actually there's a real problem with balloons entangling animals like birds. So it's not that fun for the animals that get caught in them. Yes. And then we want you to think about reusable items as well. Particularly at the current time, perhaps think about using reusable face masks rather than the disposable ones, because we're already seeing those washing up on the beaches, but also things like your shopping bags, reusable water bottles and coffee cups and things like that.
Yeah, so you can go for things like that are biodegradable, and then just remember that always that sometimes the litter you put in the sea, it will go somewhere else, and it might not even affect the coast near you, it might affect it somewhere on the other side of the world. So we've all got to really work together on this one, haven't we?
Definitely, yeah.
And then I thought, obviously, because we talked about how sort of people over 18 can sign that petition, so I thought for our younger viewers, I might say a little bit about this, and we can talk about this, because young people really can make a difference, can't they? Because we've seen recently, we've had like the school strikes and the global climate strikes. And like my job at the Trust is I'm the campaigns officer, so I'm trying to get people to change the things that they do to try and help the environment. And we're seeing like lots of young people come really interested in the environment. And how important do you think that is, Emily?
I think it's really important that the young people kind of think about these things and also try and put put pressure on the grown-ups to do something about it, because ultimately it's their future that we're having an impact on. The children will be the next generation that has to deal with the problems that we've created.
Yeah, because I think in a way it's really sort of important that we get young people asking lots of questions and making sure that they're aware of the issues and that they're talking about them, and they're making like us adults think about them a little bit more, because it's usually the adults that can make the big changes to like laws and things like that. So in terms of questions, I think that brings us on very nicely to our question and answers. So what would you like to know? So hopefully you've been sending in lots of different questions to Emily over the course of this webinar. We've got the lovely Emma who's just appeared again, and she's now going to read out some of your questions and Emily's going to answer them. So it's still not too late to ask your question. You can type it in now and we might just have time to get it in. Okay, so I'll hand over to Emma.
Thanks, James. Yeah, you've been sending in some great questions. So I've had a question from Harry, Emily, and he's asked what the most dangerous animal is in the ocean.
Most dangerous?
Yeah.
Well, there are actually quite a few deadly animals in the ocean. Thankfully, we don't have too many of them around here. I suppose your first thought might be things like sharks, so great white sharks. They often get a bit of a bad reputation, and yes, occasionally they do accidentally kill someone, but you know, in general we're entering their habitats. But there are also other things that you might not think about, like the box jellyfish. There are a few kinds of box jellyfish which have a really nasty sting that can actually be deadly. So you don't want to go near one of those, but thankfully they tend to live in other countries. Apologies to the person from Australia who's with us, because that's where you're more likely to find one than here. And also things like stingrays, they can have a nasty sting if you get caught out by one of those.
We're not likely to meet them going paddling.
Not likely to meet them here. We do have some jellyfish, obviously, which can give a nasty sting, but it's very rare for you to have such a adverse reaction to them that you might die. So don't be afraid to go exploring the beach.
That leads me on to a question that we've had in about jellyfish, actually, and it's, why do jellyfish have tentacles and why do they sting?
So they have lots of tentacles so that they can catch their prey, so all of the things that they like to eat. And on each of those thin tentacles that they have, they'll have rows and rows of stinging cells, which are like little harpoons. So it's a little capsule with a hook inside, and if they get brushed against by something as they're swimming along, so it might be your leg or it might be a little fish that they want to eat, that will trigger the stinging cell to shoot out this hook and capture the animal, and then they can move it up towards their mouth and eat it. So that's why they sting. They can also kind of stop their prey from moving with special toxins as well. So that's why they've got these nasty stinging tentacles.
So it's their way of feeding themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I had a question in from Jessica, and she said, all sea creatures have Latin names.
That's a really good question, and the answer is yes, but no. So not all creatures have Latin names. Some of them are actually come from a Greek origin, but all creatures have a scientific name, and those are the ones that we've kind of identified and described and given names to. There are actually over 100,000 marine creatures in the world, and there are still many more to be discovered, and those will not have names yet.
No. In fact, got another one here from Daniel, age 10, and he says, what's the weirdest sea creature that's ever been discovered?
It's a good question. I mean, there are lots of weird and wonderful sea creatures. You know, in the deep sea, there are weird things that we're finding all the time, like fish with see-through heads and things like that. But there are some weird and wonderful things that we can find on our own shores as well, and you might come across these on the beach. So have you ever heard of a sea mouse? It's a sort of sausage-shaped thing that you often find washed up on the beach, and it's not a mouse, but it's actually a worm. and they have kind of grey spines, but they're also kind of rainbow coloured on the edges, blue and green and gold. And they might look a bit harmless, like a fairy kind of creature, but they're actually a deadly hunter of crabs and other worms and things. So they're
Wow.
really strange.
And that's something we can see on the UK coastline, is it?
Yeah, they wash up
Look
on
out
the
for
shore around the Wirral and across the northwest coast.
Oh, I'll keep my eye out next time I visit. Someone's put in the comments here that they know a blobfish. Now, I've seen a blobfish on the internet. They're pretty weird.
They are very strange, yeah.
So I've had a message from Izzy, and she said that she wants to work as a marine biologist when she's older, and she wants to know what's the best way to be a marine biologist.
Well, I'd say that's a very good job to do. We always need more people to help us learn more about the seas and also tell everyone else how amazing they are and help us protect them. So I am a marine biologist, and I went to university and I did a marine biology degree. But you don't have to do that. You can learn lots through volunteering and working with different businesses. Really just get out there and kind of explore things, and there are many different ways to get into the conservation sector that we're all in, and you'll meet people that have come from all different backgrounds, but you can study it if you want to.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've had a message in, and it says, do we have octopus in the UK?
We do have octopus in the UK, and very occasionally you do find them on the beach as well. So sometimes when we have rough weather, they get a little bit confused, and you might see one crawling up the sand. But I bet not all of you know that octopuses have 3 hearts, blue blood, and 9 brains, well, sort of brains. They have a kind of central group of nerves in their head, and also one in each tip of their arms. So that's some pretty cool facts about octopus.
It is pretty cool. Someone has asked here, how long can a turtle live for?
So we get the leatherback turtle in the Irish Sea, and they live up to about 50 years, which is quite old. But some of you may remember, if you've seen Finding Nemo, the green sea turtle actually lives longer than that, over 100 years. So they're really amazing creatures.
That is amazing. I'm just looking at the comments coming through, and someone said that they saw an octopus in a rock pool in Cornwall last autumn.
Yeah.
That's cool. Really cool.
Exciting.
What else we got? Oh, and someone's asked here, when's the best time of year to visit the beach to see wildlife?
It's a good question. I mean, I would say any time of year, because I'm really keen on going to the beach, even in the depths of winter. But you're more likely to find things in the rock pools, and if you kind of sit on the coast and look out to sea, if you're looking for whales and dolphins, you're more likely to see them in the summer as well, when the sea's a bit flatter, and come in to feed on the fish and things close to shore. So summertime's probably the best for spotting things.
Yeah, I love going to Anglesey. There's a nice place in Anglesey where we go, and you can see at the South Stack there, but going off to Anglesey, Linus Lighthouse, and that's really flat, and you've got a really good overview there, looking at dolphins, and I think we've seen whales once there, which was just fantastic.
Amazing.
So I have someone, Ian, said, what's the longest fish?
The longest fish, well, that would be the blue shark. So sometimes people don't think of sharks as fish, but they are. So not the blue shark, the whale shark. So that's the largest fish in the ocean. And as I said, we've got the basking shark, which is the second largest.
Okay. Just had Anne-Marie come through here and say, where did the leatherback turtles in the Irish Sea hatch from?
So they have a really long migration, and they go all the way across the other side of the Atlantic to places like French Guiana. So they have a really long trip back to the same beaches where they were born, and they make their own nests, and then they swim all the way back to places like the Irish Sea to feed on our jellyfish blooms, because they really like eating jellyfish and they jump on them all day.
They like them. Steve here, probably commenting on what something we were saying earlier, saying that the most dangerous animal in the sea is the human. I think he's probably got a point there, really, hasn't he? When we talk about dangerous animals, and
yeah, definitely. We're having quite an impact on our seas. So.
Yeah. Christine has asked, what's the most beautiful dolphin?
The most beautiful dolphin? Oh, that's I'd say that's probably a matter of opinion. I quite like the Risso's dolphins, which we get in the Irish Sea. They're quite unusual. They're a sort of dark grey. They've got quite a smooth shape to them, and they have lots of kind of scratches on them from where they're kind of interacting with each other. So they have these kind of white streaks in a way. I think they're really, really pretty to look at.
Great. And I've had a message here from Alex saying, where would you say is the best place to see lots of crabs and sea urchins? Alex's son is desperate to see some unusual creatures and just not sure which coastal area would be best to go to.
So definitely an area with some rocky shore. So I'm not sure where you live, but if you can find some of those rocky shore hotspots on the coast of Northwest, then go there. I mean, I live in Cumbria. And there's some great spots for rock pooling around here. One of my favourite places to go to is Walney Island. Ernsey Bay's got some great rock pools, often find sea urchins and starfish there, and also places St Bees further up on the Cumbria coast.
That sounds like a good place to visit. Another jellyfish question come in. So how long do they tend to live for?
It's variable between the different types of jellyfish. Many of them actually only live for one season, so they have quite an interesting life cycle. So only part of their life cycle, the medusa, it's called, that we see swimming around, so that bell-shaped form, and part of it, they live on the sea floor, attached to rocks and things. A tiny little thing, much smaller than an anemone, but very similar to them. It's called a polyp. The polyp will release these little things called ephyra. So that's kind of like the larva of the jellyfish. They will grow into the normal jellyfish, then they will reproduce and settle again to form these polyps. So some of them live for a year, but there are different kinds, and there's a special kind of jellyfish which is known as the everlasting jellyfish, because it can actually go between the two phases, so it can go backwards, and people think it lasts forever.
That's quite a complex life cycle then for the jellyfish.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah,
simple creature.
It's fascinating. I'm just looking through these questions. So how many types of seals are there in the UK?
How many types of seals?
Yeah.
There are two types of seals. So we have the hubba or common seal and the grey seal. I've just noticed lots of people saying the internet or the quality is quite bad.
Oh, yeah.
I could try turning my video off and that might help. But that will mean, unfortunately, you can't see me. I'll give that a go now. Any clearer for the sound?
I think so, yeah.
So I don't know, I'll just repeat it in case you didn't hear. So we've got harbour seals, which are also known as common seals, and grey seals. And we actually have 90% of the European population of grey seals in the UK.
Wow. We're all here. Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Oh, now Toby has asked, how many teeth do sharks have?
Oh, that's a very good question, and one I'm not sure I know the answer to. I would say it probably depends on the type of shark. Some of them have double rows of teeth, and things like the basking shark, you might not think it's got any teeth because it's just got this huge big mouth that swims along and gobbles up all the little creatures, but they've got lots and lots of very tiny teeth. So tough question that.
Yeah, it is. I think you sometimes find shark teeth on the beach.
Yeah,
if you're lucky. But yeah, not sure how many teeth, but I think lots for some sharks would be a good answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Many. And I'll just look for the last one before we hand back to James. Okay, and we have someone here say, are there any sea lions in England on the UK coast?
No, we don't have any sea lions. That's a good question. We only have the seals, and they are related, but they're also quite different. So you might remember from looking at pictures of sea lions that they've got much longer front flippers that they kind of stand and walk on, and they also have ears on the kind of outside of their body. They've got little ears that stick out much more than our seals do.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Emily. And I just want to ask you one as well. I'd like to ask, what's your favourite fact about sea life?
Oh, that's a really difficult question.
Sorry.
My favourite fact about sea life of all time. I don't know. There's too many. I mean, all of the sea creatures, they've got so many interesting things about them.
Yeah.
From starfish that can lose an arm and grow it back again. I think my octopus facts are quite interesting. I do really love those octopus facts. But half of our wildlife lives in the sea, so there's so much that we can
keep on exploring.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Emily.
No,
and thank you everyone for sending your questions in, some really good ones. Sorry we haven't had time to get through all of them. But yeah, if you just keep an eye on our social media, we always have things coming through about what we're doing and what's happening in the oceans. Thanks very much.
Thank you, for all those questions. I learned quite a lot there, so thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
I did notice someone said, what's the noisiest animal? I don't know if it's probably not the noisiest, but one very noisy animal is the natterjack toad. So if you ever do get a chance to go to Red Rocks, you might hear them making an awful lot of noise. And then I think there's one interesting fact I found out, was that if you walked around all the coastlines of the world, you'll have walked to the same distance as going to the moon. So we've got loads of coastlines around the world that you can explore, and in Australia as well, apparently. So moving on for the questions, we're nearly finished for today, but I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we are doing for National Marine Week. So we've already told you about sort of the things you can do at home to help protect the seas, by signing up to our campaign, by not using chemicals, by making sure you use reusable items and not lots of disposable plastic. But we've got some exciting things going on this week. So we're halfway through the first week now. But we've got this Northwest Beach Art competition, which is very exciting. Now, I think Emily can probably tell you a bit more about some of the prizes we've got on offer for that, but we want to see your beach art, don't we, Emily?
Yes, definitely. And the closing date is Sunday, so do get out tomorrow and Saturday if you can, and enter that. I think the weather's going to be good. So we're looking for you to go to the beach, or even if you've got a sandpit in your own garden, and make your own marine-themed sand sculpture. So not just your normal sandcastle, but it needs to be in the shape of an animal, so whether that's an octopus or a turtle or a jellyfish, whatever it is, we want to see it. And you can submit your entries to us on our website. I think you're going to get all the links later. And then we'll have 3 prizes, so first, second and third. First prize is a grey seal adoption pack and a goodie bag. The second prize is a rock pool and kit and a goodie bag, and the third prize is a goodie bag. So that's going to be plastic-free goodie bags with also activities and stories and things to get involved with.
Lots of exciting prizes there, so get your entries in as soon as possible, get them in before Sunday, and hopefully you could be one of our lucky winners. And then the other thing we've got going on as well, and this is for sort of not just families, but also anyone else who wants to go out and explore. So we've got the Coastal Wildlife Challenge. So I've made a bit of a video to show you what that's about. This is all about going out and discovering nature and using your phone to help work out what it is. So if you're one of our younger viewers, you might want to go out with your parents or grandparents or someone else that you trust, and they might be able to help you find some of these different species. So I'll play you a little video to tell you what that's all about, how you can get involved. Oops, I've gone on the wrong button there. Where's my screen gone? Let's share this one. So this is my last video for the day, and then we'll say goodbye after that.
So for National Marine Week this year, what we're encouraging you to do is to go to our website and sign up to our Nature Challenge. What you need to do is sign up and download the iNaturalist app. And then using the app, what you can do is go out and explore and find lots of different types of marine life and work out what it is. So here we've got some sand dunes. Now these have taken years to form and they've become quite established with lots of different plants, and that means there'll be lots of different species here to investigate. So what you need to do is open up the app and take a picture.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So can you share
Come to
that?
the first one goes to the bottom.
So this looks like sea holly here. So I'm going to ID it. Let's get the app.
Really quickly, easy to do once you just take a photo.
picture. And we tag it there. Yep, sea holly. Now you can always tell it's sea holly because of its little blue flowers and its sort of pale green spiky leaves. It's a lovely little plant which you'll find in sandy soils by the coast.
It doesn't just have to be plants you look at, you can look at insects, all kinds of wildlife.
There's a kestrel hovering over the salt marsh. It could be hunting for small mammals. It might go down in a minute. Look.
Obviously it's easier to take a picture of something that doesn't move.
Okay.
Really simple, you just take a picture, then you tap on the thing to see if you can find what it is, and it comes up with some suggestions. You can work out which one it is.
So one really important thing about this salt marsh here at Red Rocks is it's home to the natterjack toads. Now these are quite a rare species and we have them in this pool here, and we fence it off so nothing can go in, and that keeps them safe and hopefully protects them when they're breeding.
This is one example of the habitat that the natterjack toad benefits from. It uses the soft sand during the daytime to bury itself to sleep as it's a nocturnal animal.
So one way of recognising the natterjacks are their distinctive yellow stripe down the back. They've also got quite a loud call as well. But please do view them from a distance, so we can leave them in peace and in a little home.
Yeah, obviously do respect wildlife, don't pick up any live wildlife with your hands, okay? Make sure you keep it clean the whole beach.
So this is just some of the rubbish we picked up from the beach today, and it just sort of shows that we really need to take care of these places because they're really important to us, not just for wildlife, but also for us to enjoy as well. One thing in particular is we found is a balloon there, so that's just showing that even stuff you do away from the beach can have an impact on our coasts, and it's important we think about that at all times.
So there we have it for today. So if you want to get involved in any of those competitions or the Coastal Nature Challenge that we've just shown you, we're going to be sending you an email with all the links in. So that's got the Coastal Nature Challenge, it's got the beach art competition, it's got 9 things you can do at home to help the coast, it's got the links to our highly protected marine areas petition for the adults, and lots of links to stuff you can just do at home to perhaps help wildlife around the coast. So thank you very much for taking part today. Thank you for your amazing questions, and thank you for listening in. I hope you've learned lots of things today, and big thank you to Emma and Emily for helping out today, and I hope we'll see you at another one of our webinars in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.